Yes.
Hello? Do you hear me? Hello? Do you hear me?
Is it okay now?
Teraz jest dobrze na pewno.
Yes, it's okay for me.
Yes, we hear you.
Oh,
Only me?
hello? Do you hear me?
Jest ok.
Is it okay now?
Teraz jest dobrze na pewno.
Yes, it's okay for me.
Yes, we hear you.
Oh,
Okay, we can continue. Let's try.
hello, hello?
Okay, we can continue. Let's try.
The same problem still.
Yeah, I think if she mute, we can continue.
Who mute microphone?
No, SolidART.
Maybe. Do you hear me? Could you give me a... Okay, so I would like to introduce you Matthew Decamp. He's 22 years old. He is currently graduating from a master's in European Affairs in Science for Bordeaux and beginning the study of masters in the international and European law in the law faculty of Toulouse. However, he is an active member of Association Maison de l'Europe de Landes lycée. Is it correct?
Yes, it's good.
Where he designs local European and international projects. His main interests are history of international relations, collaboration between states and European policies. Matthew, please.
Okay, thank you. So I will try to share my screen. Can you see the PowerPoint? It's good? Okay.
Yes.
So thank you for the invitation and to be able to talk a bit about World War II and Cold War in France. I would begin by saying that France was more affected during World War II than during Cold War because she was a major actor in the World War, while in the Cold War she didn't have an involvement as a prime actor. So in fact, France began to enter in the war in October 3rd of 1939, 2 days after the invasion of Poland by Germany, because of the game of alliances, which was very present and important at this time, because France was allied with many countries in Europe, and majorly the United Kingdom and Poland. So, however, since I think maybe 20 or 40 years old, French students after the high school are also learning about the importance of the World War II in other continents than Europe, and so about the beginning of the war in Asia, for instance, which began in 1941, around 1941, with the invasion of Manchuria by Japan. So it's something that we don't really learn when we are in high school or when we are younger, but when we go to universities, people are gradually learning more about it and about the action and the war in other continents. So we learn that at the beginning of the war, the main players for us at least were France and the United Kingdom for the Allies, and Germany, Italy, and Japan for the Axis, while Soviet Union was in a pact of non-aggression with Germany. So like neutral, but at the same time, they had some kind of alliance, and the United States of America were totally neutral for at the beginning in 1939. Then there's two countries involved in the war after the breaking of the Pact of Non-Aggression between Germany and Soviet Union, one part, and because of the attack on Pearl Harbor for United States, which joined the United Kingdom. For France, there was an unofficial end of the conflict in 1940 because France was totally losing against Germany, and so the Maréchal Pétain, which was a war hero at this time, decided to create a sort of collaboration with Germany and with Hitler by signing a ceasefire. And France was divided in two sides because Pétain, who was the official government, was collaborating with Germany, while on the other side, the General de Gaulle, who would become president after the war, just escaped from France, went to United Kingdom, and he created a network of resistance to continue to fight against Germany and also the French government. So the French population was kind of divided because all the northern part of France was occupied by Germany and under the conditions of the German state, while the southern part was a free zone, which was led by Maréchal Pétain, but which was collaborating with Germany, and in some point they contributed to mass oppression. Like, for instance, they organized the repression of Jews in France before Germany actually demanded it. So there was a really strong collaboration between the government and Germany, and the resistance was like a terrorist movement at this moment, and it was only some people who had to make these actions while hiding from the government, the police, and the SS, because they were captured and killed if they were caught doing bad actions. And life conditions in France at this time were the same than in other occupied countries, with difficult conditions, with a ration card system to get food and accommodation. And after 1943, the so-called Service du Travail Obligatoire, which is the compulsory work service, where French people had to go in Germany to work on the train, railways, or in the transport means. And it was compulsory for most of the French men, except if they had some conditions, like, for instance, my grandfather my great-grandfather didn't have to do it because he joined the police at that time, and so he had a special condition which allowed him to not go to Germany, which was something really special. And so this system is complicated because it still has a huge weight on the collective conscience, because people were opposing in France between collaborators, resistance, and just people who were neutral, which were the majority of French. And so in some cases, They were families totally divided. Like, for instance, I talked with someone, I think 1 month ago, where his grandmother was collaborating with Germany while his father was resisting and fighting against Germany. So in the same family, sometimes you have two people of the same family who have a different point of views and are in two different sides of the conflict. So those documents are not copyrighted. They came from a German historian with whom we work, and they show a repartition of the prisoner camps in the east of France and Germany, where French prisoners are kept captured. And on the left, you can see one paper, which is a condemnation for French to go in a prison camp. And so, like I said it before, there was also the compulsory work service, which forced French men to go to contribute to the war effort in Germany, even if it didn't want to. So they had sometimes to enroll in the German army, and sometimes they went there as workers. So after the war, the France was destroyed in a lot of ways. There were around 560,000 deaths, but we are not sure about the exact numbers. Sometimes some people are saying that it's more 400,000, so we are not totally sure. But at least there are around 150,000 soldiers who died during the two first years of the war, so 1939 and 1940. There were 20,000 resistants who died also when they were captured or killed for information and tortures. And there were 120 civil people who died during the war, and 130,000 other civil which were killed as during the deportation, or they were not, they were collateral damage, we can say. And the material in France was also in a large part destroyed, because 20% of the means of production were totally destroyed, so everything needed to be built again. There were 1 million of French people who were homeless, 88% of the French rivers which couldn't be used by boats because they were destroyed and they were not passes to allow the boats to cross the rivers, and around 50% of the train station in France were also destroyed. So it was really difficult to go from one city to another or to produce, and basically there was everything to build again. So that's why France collaborated with the United States after the war, we can say, because thanks to de Gaulle, who united with the United Kingdom and the United States, France was in the side of winner at the end of the war, while in reality we collaborated. So it's part with Germany, part with the United States. It's a bit difficult, and but we were in the winner side, and so it allowed us to get help from the Brest with the Plan Marshall, which allowed France to get back in its normal situation by getting a lot of money to build the infrastructures from the United States. And as I said in the beginning, during the Cold War, France was less affected because it didn't have a huge political importance of the Communist Party. It was important at the beginning, just after the war in 1945, because the Soviet Union was allied with France at that time. So the Communist Party in France managed to get around 25% of the votes at that time, and it was a strong political power. But after de Gaulle came to presidents, it was different because they didn't have the same political ideas, and de Gaulle was really opposed to communism, so he just managed to reduce its importance in policy. And now the Communist Party has around 5% at best during the elections.
Matthew, could you translate us the title of this graphics?
Yeah, sorry. It means all countries of Europe have vanquished communism, and France keeps being the only one threatened. So it's a propaganda fish against communism, because France was allied with the United States, so it was a capitalist state, and it was totally opposed to the ideas of the Soviet Union at that time. Still, communism had a strong cultural influence in France for intellectuals in particular, with Picasso, Argan, Éluard, or Joliot-Curie, but also a lot of other intellectuals. And in literature, in cinema, in sculpture, in all types of intellectual activities, people were really interested by the communist ideas, and so it didn't have a huge political power, but still a huge cultural one. And the communist newspapers in France also had a strong audience, which doubled, for instance, between 1940 and 1956, with I think in 1960 it was around 400,000 newspapers, communist, which were sold in Paris. So France wasn't directly impacted by the Cold War in Europe, but still it had an influence for its colonies, because the Soviet Union was supporting a lot of countries in the Third World, and two of these colonies for France were impacted, and still today a huge memory problem, because for a lot of time it wasn't really remembered as a war by the officials in France, and it wasn't recognized. We, for instance, for Algeria war, we talked about the events of Algeria, to not say the World War, and it was a complicated decolonization problem for France for these two wars, while for other countries it was more peaceful. But it was one of the first moments where France had to face guerrilla in the war, which was a new way of fighting, and which created a lot of deaths for France, but much more for the people living in these countries at that time. And finally, for the consequences of the Cold War, still it was the most important element was the fall of Berlin Wall, which was important in France because it was allied with the FA for the construction of the European Union, or before that the European Community. So when Germany reunited and both sides joined again, it was a great moment for France, because it was like getting back friends, and being able to have new allies and a new power sustaining our ideas, and a new collaborator. So France really supported the fall of the Berlin Wall, and then so when there was a throwback of the Soviet Union and the communist ideas, it really supported the development of capitalism and allowed France to create, to consolidate the European Union in France with its allies. For today, so still we know that the European Union is facing a lot of crises, with currently the sanitary crisis, which is a huge problem because the European Union has difficulties to deal with it, and sometimes we hear that citizens are saying that the European Union is not doing anything. In the same time, we have economic crisis, which is also difficult to deal with, and the rise of far-right parties in a lot of European countries, with the Brexit, which is the first time, I think, that a European country is leaving the European Union, and which is threatening the stability of this union, because it means that the union is not as strong as it was, even if United Kingdom never was as strongly linked with the European Union than other countries. Still, it shows that it's possible to leave it. So it is a threat for its strength and its union, and it shows that a lot of things still need to be done to strengthen the EU and to make it a major actor in Europe. So finally, I would say that to shape a better future of unity and solidarity between European citizens and European countries, it's important to allow them to remember what has been done in the past, because memories are sometimes difficult to remember and can hurt, but it also has an importance to not do the same errors. Like for France, as we have seen it, we have two histories, with one of resistance, which is really good because we help to protect people, but at the same time we have the collaboration where some French people had to kill the others. So it's important to remember both of these stories, to know how to continue to create a unity and to not do other events like this, and to allow young people to learn history. We also think that it's important to do it by different or alternative ways, because sometimes the school doesn't manage to interest young people, and it's our duty to help them have some information and be informed about it. And for the flyer you can see, it's a flyer from the European Commission, which is saying future is in your hands, for the Europa Day of 2021. Thank you.
Matthew, thank you for your very interesting presentation. It is really good to know how people in France and France at all understand the wartime and what was happening in Europe. Of course, I have a question for you, and I hope people have a question too. Bianca, for example. First question is that you said that the France was a country between two sides. I understood that actually, when you finished Second World War, you started the next war in China and the next in others colony. How do you think how people in France understand the Iron Curtain decision?
For the Iron Curtain, I think at the time it was less seen because people in French, it was the glorious 30 years, I think I'm not sure about the translation in English, but people in France had a lot of economic progress, and they were really more concerned about the fact of getting a job and having the power to buy what they wanted. And so it was the iron curtain, which was really distant from France. We knew that it was occurring, but except for Berlin and Germany, I'm not sure if French people at that time were still so concerned about it.
If I understand well, as you show us the picture, so that you see that the Iron Curtain time as a kind of chance for your country?
No, it's not really a chance, but it's just that France was not really impacted by it. In fact, I think it was something which occurred more in the east of Europe, and France had other issues and problems at that time, and the officials and politicians were informed about it, but after it was really a cultural influence, and just people were impacted and influenced by communism, but not so much by what was going in other countries. For instance, in the southwest where I live, it's a lot of rural areas, and people didn't really thought even about what was going on the other cities like Paris, for instance. It was too long, too far from their own cities and their own lives, so it was too far to really interest them, I think.
I have another question. You said that the Second World War started on the 3rd October. Are you sure? Because it's a question about the how to say, maybe the level of knowledge, because as we said in Poland, the Second World War started in the 1st of September.
Yeah, so it's a new war. Actually, it's the 3rd of September.
Sure. So
yeah.
Could you tell us how you think? What is the level of knowledge, especially in the young people group in France, about this time, about the Second World War and the Iron Curtain times?
So currently, I think we have more information about both World War II and the Cold War, because it's more documented. We have more information, and like I said, the memories were really important in France, and a work of memory has been done, because until a lot of years, people still had difficulties to remember and to say the right history, which occurred both during World War II and Cold War. For instance, the collaboration was not, we didn't talk about it in France, while we know it existed, and it was a big problem, but people didn't want to talk about it because it was too hurting and too difficult to talk about it until I think the 90s. And now young people are beginning to talk more about it, because they didn't know this era and this times, and so they begin to learn about it and to have more information since 1990.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any questions? Ricky? No?
So maybe there's time for break. 10 minutes.
Yes, I think. Let's make a little
Thank
break.
you very much for this part. It was really interesting. There's, for me at least, that's a lot of new facts. So see you in 10 minutes. So I mean 12:20. We'll be waiting for you here.
Thank you. See you.
Welcome. Can we start again? Can you back to our... Two last sessions.
Have you prepared your coffee, everyone?
Yes.
Okay.
A nie wrzuć.
Cheers.
Is Anya with us?
Yes.
Marta.
Ah, okay.
Piotr powie.
So 2 minutes and we'll ask you for the presentation. Let's wait for the rest.
Co wy macie?
Piotrka wyczułeś. Sorry, it's not Ania.
Nie wiem, co tam.
Śmieję się z tego. So Piotr, can we start?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to thank you for the first session, and I would like to invite you for the second session of our conference and meeting. It's a great pleasure to introduce you Ania Akmentina from Latvia. She is 15 years old. It is a great moment to understand how the young people understand the iron curtains problems. Anya studies in Praili, first primary school. She's graduated from the music school, currently studying at the art school. She is a school activist who participates in the school activities and also in the chairman of a school council. Anya?
So, hi guys, I'm Ania. I represent a Prague municipality youth center 4, and yeah, here's a presentation. So let's start talk about World War II in Latvia. Yeah. So here's the content. Facts about World War II overall, World War in Latvia, Latvian in the post-war period, Iron Curtains, memories and thoughts of Latvian population about war, young people thoughts, and questions. So here's some facts about World War II overall. World War was a global war that lasted from 1939 to 1945. It started when Germany attacked Poland, the largest and most devastating war in history. It was between the Axis and Allies, claiming the lives of some 70 million civilians and military personnel. A total of 61 countries took part in the war. The main field of war was Europe. There was no leading states in this war, but the country was divided into groups, allies led by Nazi Germany, and Empire of Japan, and Fascist Italy, and Axis led by USA, USSR, Great Britain, and Republic of China. World War II in Latvia. It was started on August 23, 1939, in order to prevent mutual conflict and obtain guarantees. The USSR Foreign Minister Molotov and the German Foreign Minister Ribbentrop signed an agreement in which the USSR and German undertook not to attack each other. In the summer of 1940, the Soviet Union, USSR, occupied the Baltic states, and Latvia, like Estonia and Lithuania, were included in the USSR. Changes in last when Latvia was in USSR, people were forced into different system of values and different ideology. Many people lost their positions. Representing began soon after the occupation. People were arrested, tortured, and killed. On June 14, 1941, more than 50,000 Latvians were deported from Latvia to Siberia and other remote areas of the USSR. World War II in Latvia, when we were under the German Nazis. After the German attack on the USSR in June 1941, Latvia came under the rule of Nazi Germany. The Nazi plans did not restore Latvia's national independence. They wanted subjecting the move. About 70,000 local Jews were killed during the German Holocaust, as well as about 20,000 Jews imported from other European countries. Some brave fellow citizens risking their lives, and those of their loved ones tried to save the Jews from death. In violation of international agreement, both the USSR and Germany mobilized more than 200,000 Latvians in their armed forces. Almost half of them fell in World War II, and many were seriously injured. During the World War II, nationalism meant that people began the struggle for the restoration of Latvians' independence. Such a goal was set, for example, by the Central Council of Latvia, which focused on democratic first countries and did not want to cooperate with the Hitler Germany and Stalin's Soviet Union. The Second World War in the territory of Latvia ended on May 8, 1945. Here's some Latvia losses under the rule of Nazi Germany. Under influence of the Nazi-occupied regiment, Latvia lost a large part of its intelligence. Latvia had lost the Jewish minority. The economy was devastated by retreating. The Nazi had taken away or destroyed almost all the major economic objects, which made the first post-war year particularly difficult. Latvia, the post-war period after the war in 1944, Latvia was occupied by the Red Army. Many people fled to Sweden or Germany, but later to the other countries. Latvia was occupied by the USSR and became the Soviet Socialist Republic, or SSR. The Soviet Social Republic of Latvia existed for 46 years, from 1944 to 1990s. It was Cold War time. relations between the USSR and the United States were very tense. They were never ended in the direct military conflicts in Latvia, but there was iron curtains. Iron curtains. There were difficult times for Latvians, population, and especially for Latvians. There was no freedom of choice. People lived in a curtain frame. They could not say anything against the government. They dressed what they were allowed to do. They governed the Jordans what they were told. They went to practice to work where they were instructed. Latvians did not even know what was happening in the outside world. They learned about what was happening outside the USSR from newspapers that had and controlled or even fake information about the United States and other countries. Here's some memories of one of civilian Paul Zalan. So yeah, in 1940, the Russian came. For 2 weeks, soldiers ran along the highway on foot, with trucks, with cannons, with horses. Then came the Germans. It seemed that God himself had saved us, and that we were finally free. As for the Germans, they have done several things to the Jews. Yes, this is a crime, but as far as Latvians are concerned, it was not here that German soldier has committed any violence. There was no such thing. 11 or how old I was, sometimes I was alone at home. German soldiers come in and ask, there are eggs, can I get a piece of lard? Here's Paula's sister experience about time when Germans was in Latvia. When the Germans came in, my sister and my other sister went to Rezekne prison. In prison, he was told to go to check house in Labyrinth avenues, where peoples are being tortured. The music was played there day and night, so that no one could hear whining and shouting. What they have seen, the walls when they enter into human body, up to all the floor where everything is flooded with blood. Hooks in the ceiling on which people behind the skin turn, fingers cut with a meat grinder, letters still stick to the stove, where palms are burned in a hot parade, and there were still dead in the cart. So what those who were looking could be found. Pierced eyes, trimmed nose, lips, tormented as much as you can turn. Latvia loses during and after World War II. Latvia loses about a third of population, killed, deported, and emigrated. The losses of the Latvian economy are estimated as several billion. The conclusions of the war were felt until the restoration of independence of Latvia on May 4, 1990. Here's some commemoration of the victims of the communist genocide take place every year in Latvian Pēļi. And here's some young people thoughts about World War II. Young people today are not really interested in what happened in the past. Talk about World War II. They think more now and here. Of course, there are young people interested in it, but they take more lightly. They think it will not affect them. And generally, if they are not interested in World War II, they can only learn about from short conversation with older peoples or history lessons. Now I'm in grade 9, and we start talk about world wars only in 8th and 9th grades. And about World War II, we learned only in 9th grade. Adolescents clearly perceive the Germans as the main enemy at the time, because everyone has already been born Hitler without even going deeper. How can we encourage young people to learn about history so that what led to the division of Iran does not happen again? According to the young people themselves, in order to promote this topic, we need to talk more about damage and the conclusions of the war. They know about the war only superficially, what happens there and the main characters. Without going deeper, they don't really not notice the consequences. But if there was more emphasis on the consequences, young people will start to think what they could lose if the war happens again. So yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
Ania, thank you for your voice and your presentation. Everyone, can you hear me? Do you hear me? Can we see together? Could you turn on your camera, please? Oh, thank you. It's good to know that you are there. Ania, I have a question for you. Actually, few questions. Thank you for the great memories, and I think that we, Latvia and Poland, and I think a lot of east part of Central Europe have the same experiences from the Iron Curtain times. So the first question: how do you see the, if it's possible to understand and to say us, how do you see the Soviet occupation? Because you said something about the Germans occupation. How do you understand, as the young people in Latvia, the Soviet occupation time?
Can you repeat your question?
Yes, sure. How do you see on Latvia the Soviet occupation time?
So I see it like Iron Curtain, because people live in frames, and that's it. My grandmothers told me that one day I was younger, they live in small town, really small town, and they have
No, private.
they don't have private place. People don't have any
Private house.
yeah, private houses. They all live under the government.
Finally.
Yeah, it was a communism. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you. So do you have a question for Ania?
There's one question on chat for you, Anya.
Yes, Matthew.
Yes, I was asking because you showed us a testimony about a Latvian saying that she didn't hear about violences committed by German, and I was thinking, do you think Latvian people didn't feel implicated during the war, or was it an isolated case?
Anya, turn on your microphone, please. We can't hear you.
Like Germans was Latvian people still thought that Nazi Germans
Was little better.
was little better than Russians.
Soldiers.
Yeah, because they did not touch Latvians. Latvians was pretty free because they can go to work with no. People, actually, I don't know how to say it because my English not so good, but I don't think that I don't think that people's
Be a violence. It was violence.
like it was violence, but not that much that was from Russian soldiers, like Red Army or that's it.
Okay. Anya, thank you for your presentation and your answers. Following our schedule, I would like to introduce Mitsios Vasilis from Greece, municipality of Larissa. Mr. Mitsios Vasilis has studied at the Department of Balkan Studies, and he has attended postgraduate studies in business administration at the University of Bristol in England. He also has a PhD with a title E-Marketing for Small and Medium Tourism Enterprises in Greece at Trinity St. David University. Mr. Mitsios has worked on various United Union co-funded projects as well as projects regarding consulting service and technical support to public sector and local authorities for more than 15 years. Mitsios, please.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction and the invitation for this very beautiful conference. I'll start sharing my screen now. As you said, I represent the municipality of Larissa, Greece. Sorry about that. Can you see the beginning of my presentation, or is it frozen? Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, but it's black.
Yes,
okay.
But I can see your
it's frozen here, so let me. Okay.
Okay, just try to fix it.
Yes, sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Something wrong with my computer.
Try to stop share and start
Yeah,
sharing.
I'm trying to stop sharing, but it's not responding. Okay, as I try to fix it,
Hello, Vasilis. We lost you.
So maybe we can introduce Christian from Bulgaria meantime.
Okay. Christian, are you there? Hello, Christian. Do you hear us? Okay. I see Christian on the screen. So, okay, we have to wait for Vasilis Mitsios' presentation. So right now we can hear the presentation of Bulgaria and Christian Andreev. He's from Sofia, Bulgaria. He's the president of Bulgarian Youth Association, graduated Bachelor's of Administration and Management faculty. Right now studies for his master's on European project management. Activity involved the Erasmus Plus program since 2014, volunteering in the non-government and dual sector since 2010. So, Christian, microphone is yours.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sure.
Hello. Perfect. Let me share the screen. Is it visible?
Yes, we see you.
Do you see the screen share?
Yes, sure.
Perfect. Okay. Let's start.
From the beginning.
Yeah. Just to remove this. So basically, first to say, I'm 28 years old, and I don't have so much in common with history. So Piotr, please don't ask me any question later. Try to remember that. The presentation was done by me and my friend who recently finished diplomacy, history, communism. So he is into this topic. He is actually also here in the group, but he doesn't speak English, so I will speak from his name. Okay, so I wrote also all of the questions just to be maybe more clear. Of course, the tension before World War II started many years before that, with predecessing with the, for example, Italian annexation of Ethiopia, the Spanish Civil War, annexation of Austria and Czechoslovakia by Hitler, and of course the Japanese invasion of China. This happened way before, but also was one of the few reasons that tension has raised in Europe. Basically, one of the main reasons was that the unequal treaties which happened after World War I. Germany, Hungary, Austria, Bulgaria, USSR were not very happy, and other countries as Italy and Japan had some, let's say, good deals, better deals than the others, but still want more territory for their expansion. Here, I don't know if you, one second, I don't know if you see my mouse, but on the right side on the map with the red one, you can see the territories which Bulgaria lost after World War.
Christian, we see something blue on your map.
What do you see?
Something blue field. Right now is
blue field.
Oh, okay. That's better. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the territories we lost after World War I. So we were one of the countries which, let's say, wanted a revenge. But of course, one of the main countries were Hitler's Germany and Mussolini's Italy to blame for the war, but also like the ambition of Japan, USSR, Britain and United States had the ability actually to try to stop the war, but didn't do it convincingly. Britain and France, for example, would rather prefer negotiate with Hitler, hoping that he would be more moderate in his expansion. Yeah, this is. Yeah, also one of the other reasons why Japan wanted to expand in Asia is because United States blocked them to their resources, so they didn't have a choice basically. And here down you can see our king Ferdinand I. He was ruling during World War I and left when we lost. So also he's from a very famous family line, and I'll explain later one of the other reasons why we were together with Germany during both of the wars. After that, his son came into power. Also, other countries had their claims. For example, Poland agreed to divide Czechoslovakia with Germany and Hungary in in 1938 and annexed some of its territories, but later fell to the victim of the aggression of Hitler. So Poland was also divided as well after that. What was the war like in your country? Basically, the son of Ferdinand I, which I showed you in the previous photo, is called Tsar Boris III. He was in rule. Basically, he didn't have any opposition in the country, and the people favored him. They liked him. So there was almost no resistance until 1941. As I mentioned before, we had, let's say, wanted to return our territories, also to expand. So we didn't have, let's say, strong army at that point. So our king starting not negotiating, but yeah, let's say speak with Hitler and Stalin to put pressure on countries like Romania, Yugoslavia, and Greece, so we can actually manage to bring back our countries, which of course didn't happen. So what we did is to join World War II officially by being together with Germany, so that we can actually have the power and courage to get back our territories. Yeah, we didn't have basically any use of being part of the war. We didn't want to have some war. Basically, we wanted our own territories. Also, Hitler pushed Bulgaria in 1941 to declare war on Great Britain and United States, which didn't end well. But yeah, and down there you can see a photo of our king, Tsar Boris III, meeting Hitler. And why I said before for Ferdinand that we joined World War I. One of the reasons is actually our king Ferdinand I is not Bulgarian. He is actually Austrian. He is part of the family house, the very prestigious house of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. This is a very strong family line and is connected with Germany. So this is also one of the reasons why Bulgaria was together with Germany. Also, our king Boris III was the person who actually denied the agreement with Hitler that they should send their Jewish community to Poland, to the concentration camps. And this is one of the, let's say, main reasons, not only, but one of the main reasons why Hitler wanted to meet with our king. And it's interesting, it's up to speculations, but after our king declined sending the Jewish community, which is living in Bulgaria, to the concentration camps, 2 weeks later, our king passed away. There is many speculations that he was poisoned during his meeting with Hitler, due to the agreement about the Jewish, and also about not wanting to interfere much in the war. So yeah, after 1943, after Boris, the next king which we had, Simeon II, he was just a little child. And 1 year after that, when the communist regime came into Bulgaria, the family, the royal family of Bulgaria was expelled to Spain. And since then, they were living there. Just recently, the son of Boris III came into Bulgaria. 1 second. Yeah. And thanks to our membership, let's say, with Germany in the same pact, the Germans allowed temporary rule of Macedonia and Asian Thrace. Of course, after the Soviet army came, Bulgaria was forced to have anti-coalition against Hitler. we changed our sides in the war, and let's say thanks to this, we were not destroyed. We retained some of the territories we had, but lost, for example, Macedonia and Asian Thrace, which were returned, of course, to Yugoslavia and Greece. Sorry, someone is speaking. Can you turn off the mic?
Just continue, Christian, please.
Yeah, but there is an echo. Okay, and this is a map of Bulgaria during World War II. You can see here Yugoslavia, Greece. This is with the Romania. What price did your country and its citizens pay for participating? In the beginning, Bulgaria didn't pay such a big price, but it changed after 1942. There was a guerrilla communist movement in the country fighting against our king and the government, of course. But at that point, our authorities killed them, repressed them. So for now, it was, let's say, okay. But of course, after the death of our king and after the Soviet came to Bulgaria, they took a revenge. So basically, they started the opposite. They started killing everyone connected with the previous governments. Most of the Bulgarians were executed, connected, of course, ministers. Also, US and Britain bombed Bulgarian cities because, if you remember, we declared war on the United States. Yeah, one of the more, maybe, of course, we had to fight in the war. We didn't want to. Also, we were providing food for German soldiers and also clothes. Yeah, Hitler. It was the same after the Soviet came. We did the same, basically. We just changed sides, but still continue giving food. Yeah, despite, yeah, we actually managed to get out of the war with not so many casualties, like, for example, Hungary and Poland. And yeah, as I said, Bulgaria saved the Jewish people thanks to our king, who, let's say, was killed because of this, and is one of the very few countries who completely done that. This is one very famous document. Is the document written in 1944. It's not a document, but a paper one between Stalin and Churchill, which were deciding how to divide the Balkans. This happened before, of course, before ending. So they spoke about before. So for Bulgaria, you can see also other countries here. For Bulgaria, the most bottom one, you can see they decided that 75% should stay under Soviet influence and 25% under West influence, which of course never happened. And after World War II, it was 100% Soviet influence. It's an interesting document. 1 second. Yeah. Who is responsible for the division of Europe and the world order? Even before defeating Hitler, the United States, Great Britain, the Soviet Union shared the world in their spheres of influence. This happened at the famous conference in Casablanca, in Tehran, and Yalta in 1944, like one of the papers you saw as well. The great powers divided Europe without regard of the wishes of the people, of course. For example, there are almost no communists in Czechoslovakia, but it passed into the Soviet sphere of influence, and later there was an extremely strong communist move. And for example, in Greece, there was extremely strong communist movement, but it was suppressed because Greece was into the Anglo-American zone of influence with Stalin. Thus, the division of Europe was already predetermined, and let's say everything was known how it would be, and most of it did happen like that. Yeah, the famous meeting. On which side of the Iron Curtain did your country find itself? In the Cold War, Bulgaria was part of the USSR, as I mentioned. This was determined largely by the entry of the Soviet army. We didn't have much army. We were not a powerful nation at that point. We were divided many years during the many wars which we had before that. Many of the politicians, as I said, were executed. One of them is Nicola Petkov. You can see his portrait here. He was part of the government. But generally, during the Cold War, Bulgaria remained loyal, one of the most loyal maybe, because we were receiving cheap oil, cheap electricity, and technology. And generally, the Communist Party in Bulgaria didn't see any point to mess with the Soviet Union and didn't see any reason to have connection with the Western countries. One famous photo from communism times. What was the Cold War like in your country? Basically, people were very poor, lacked many goods and technologies. As I mentioned, we were very divided. We were ruled by not by Bulgarians. The government, however, was doing a lot of stuff for the people, which even these days we don't have. For example, free education, free healthcare, free vacation at the seaside at least once per year, provided access to basic food. That's why, as in many countries who were like that, like us, especially old people, they really feel the nostalgia that it was better living at that times. Everyone had a job. Yeah, this is some meme how good it was during communism. How were the events connected with the overthrow of the communist system in the former?
Could you show us this picture?
I want to see it. I didn't want to show. It's what my parents think I do, what my friends think I do, what my professor thinks I do, what girls think I do, my father, and actually what we do. It was fun times in communist Bulgaria. Everyone seemed happy. Yeah, this is, yeah, interesting. Yeah. Basically, how the communism collapsed in Bulgaria was by internal coup of the Communist Party, which overthrew our dictator Todor Zhivkov, who was 33 years in rule of Bulgaria, 33 years. So there was, it was an inside job. Later I'll show you a photo when this happened. It happened live in front of national television. And after that, there was no real anti-communist revolution, as the Bulgarian Communist Party just renamed itself to Bulgarian Socialist Party and is still existing. And of course, they also at that point had a new democratic opposition, the Union of Democratic Forces, which together agreed on a peaceful transition and separation of powers. And most of Bulgarians in 1990s welcomed the collapse of communism and supported the country accession to the EU and NATO, which happened. We joined EU in 2007 with Romania and joined NATO in 2004. But the corruption in the recent years heightened the nostalgia for socialist times. Yeah, generally corruption is killing right now the country. A lot of stuff are happening, so people feel communist times, let's say, more secure than European Union at these days. This is the famous photo which happened on national television. This is Todor Zhivkov. He ruled Bulgaria 33 years, and this is the moment when they told him he will not be part of this anymore, that he must go, and he did. Yeah, and this is photos symbol how we joined NATO and the signature which officially made us part of the European Union. Interesting, I forgot to mention, if you see my mouse, the second person standing, this is actually Simeon Saxo-Burgota. This is actually the son of King Boris the third one, who was who I told you before about. He came from Spain, made a political party, and yeah, he was part of this moment. What are the opportunities in trades facing the European Union? Who is a threat to the United Europe today? It is debatable what are the main threats. There are many. According to some, these are the number of Islamic and other radical groups like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and others. According to the others, it's Putin's Russia right now and its expansion. You see what is happening and doing with Belarus, with what happened in Ukraine. According to the others, it is also the economic expansion of China, which is really a heavy influencing now the European Union, as it's holding most of its main ports. Also, cheap technology, of course. Also, Euroscepticism in Europe is getting slowly very high. And of course, Europe is an old continent and its demographic is very old. So there is a demographic crisis and also technological lagging. Basically, most of the technology comes from United States, China, many places, but in Europe we're far behind. For example, with artificial intelligence, one of the main places for that was UK, for example, but UK is not anymore part of European Union, so we're getting far behind. But of course, European Union still has a lot of enormous potential, and it can overcome difficulties with proper communication and expand further. Now, of course, we also have the possible expansion of West Balkans, which is a good step. Also, yeah, we have many programs, good programs like Erasmus Plus, Horizon, which are funded by European Union, which do a lot of good things, especially for the young people. How can we encourage young people to learn about history? It's not easy question, but generally it should be interactive. Many are interested in Bulgaria, for example, but one of the main problems is the lack of prospects and good payment, as the place of humanitarian studies, such as history, is being replaced by other sciences, which are much better paid, of course. Access to quality books, magazines in Bulgaria is not very easy. Also, it's, let's say, a bit expensive. I would say not easy question. Not easy question. I will finish with this. I will thank you for your attention. Here is our page, which you can see, and maybe I'll just show you about the online gallery. This is just a preview of the photos fitting to the online gallery when the website is done. Thank you.
Kristen, thank you for your interesting presentation. I have one note and guidance for you, actually for all of us. You said the Germans were transported to Poland. It's a huge mistake. It was not Poland. It was an occupied country, and the Jewish was transported to Germans' camp in occupied Poland. I think you see the difference between.
I didn't say the Polish people did that. I said as an order from Germany to do that.
And the second note, you said that Poland was co-responsible for the outbreak of war.
Actually, I want to clarify something. Our topic was actually what we study in school, right?
Yes. I want to. Yes. Could you explain us how do you understand it? Because from our point of view, we are a victim. Christian?
Yes. What?
Should I repeat my question?
Yeah, I didn't hear. What did you say?
Okay. You said that Poland was co-responsible for the outbreak of war. I want to ask you, how do you understand it? Because from our point of view, it's of course false, because Poland was victim of this war. Could you explain how do you understand?
I cannot explain it. I don't understand it, honestly. I'm not a historian to explain this question, but this is said by historian, and this is what is studied in schools. So, personally, I don't have an opinion about this.
Okay, but could you explain how do you understand that Poland was co-responsible for this war?
Well, actually, I open now this. The only thing that it was said that Poland agreed to divide Czechoslovakia with Germany and Hungary in 1938. That's it.
So it means, and it shows that every country in the whole war was co-responsible for this war. It's true or not?
I don't think so.
Why? Because France agree for it, UK agree for it, Czech Republic agree for it. Actually, how do you understand it? In Bulgaria, of course. Christian?
Yeah.
How do you understand it in Bulgaria?
As I said, I cannot comment on something which I don't understand personally. I'm not familiar with this topic.
Okay. So do you have any question for Christian? Okay, no. So let's back to Vasilis Mitsios. Vasilis, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. I hope that you haven't problem with your presentation.
Yes, I had a problem with my connection. So shall I start sharing? Okay.
Okay, we see your presentation.
Great. Now, as I said, I represent the municipality of Larissa in Greece, and as you probably know, Greece during the Second World War was with the alliance, with the Western Alliance of France, UK, and USA, among others. And during the October of 1940, we were invaded by the fascist regime of Italy and Mussolini. We managed to hold them back, but with the help of the German war machine, we were occupied, we were defeated and occupied for 5 years by the German military force. And I will skip we all know what happened with the Yalta conference. I would just say that the effects from this German occupation, along with their allies, the Italian and the Bulgarian allies, were devastating for us, as 500,000 people were killed. 100,000 buildings and infrastructure was damaged, and most of all our local national economy based on agriculture mainly was more or less destroyed. So we had to start, let's say, from the beginning after the end of the Second World War. And even though we were supposed, as it was shown in previous presentations, we were, let's say, more oriented to the Western influence of UK and the US. Due to many reasons that had to do with the presence of the communist regime from Stalin led, and of course many false moves by the Western allies, from the West allies, led to a civil war that took place for about 4 to 5 years. And it was once again, it held back the whole country. It divided the country into two camps, to be honest. And but after this civil war ended, we tried to be more Western oriented as we joined the Council of Europe, the NATO. As a consequence for this civil war, we could say that in 1967 we had a military coup, junta, as it is known in Latin countries. And after the end of the junta in 1974, we had a more, we began to be fully parts of the European Union, first as a member of the European Economic Community, and since then we are stable members of solid members of EU. Just a very brief demonstration of how we proceeded throughout the decades in this Western orientation. To be honest, we weren't that affected by the Iron Curtain effect, even though, as I mentioned before, we had a civil war that was very painful for the whole country, and still we have vivid memories of it. And in the political scene, we have the effects, the side effects from this situation. Okay, about the EU. We are fully supportive in terms of EU. We know that the European Union was started as an idea in order to avoid in the future the possibility of another war, or for all European countries, or at least the vast majority of them, to be equal, to have equal opportunities in funding, in infrastructure development, in research, among other things. And we strongly believe that if we want to move on in our future, we must know a lot about our past, learn from our mistakes, trying to avoid making them again, and involve youngsters into this whole procedure, because they are the future, and we should provide them with all these elements and all this knowledge in order to not make the same mistakes as previous generations did in many issues. Thank you for your attention. I was brief, but I tried to avoid all the historic background of how we were, all Europe was led to the Iron Curtain phenomenon.
Vasilis, thank you for your presentation and interesting point of view. There is a great Latin sentence that history teaches life, and I think it was not an easy conference, but I believe and I'm sure that we certainly learned a lot about us, about histories, about different point of views. I think each country has complicated history, and it is a good way to understand each other. And I hope that we have more in commons that divide us as a nation of common Europe. If you have a question for Vasilis, please. No? I think that after this few hours, a lot of us are tired. So I would like to thank you for this meeting, for this conversation, for opportunity to understand and learn something about our countries. And I would like to ask Kasia of some of commentary. Thank you.
So thank you very much for being here, and I'm really sorry that you couldn't visit Warsaw because it's a very historical place, and you could visit many places connected with the Second World War, the Cold War, and it's really the city that you can feel the history all the time. Unfortunately, not this year. So thank you for thank you for participating, and I hope to see you on the next meeting face to face, as it's very important to meet each other, as it's European idea to connect people face to face, not through online. So thank you for today. If you have any question, please tell us. You've got contact to me, so anytime you need any clarification, please say. And that's it for now. One message.
Thank you.